So yeah, that theme is amazing. That's probably my favorite piece of music, and you barely hear it, which pisses me off. So yeah, that's dumb, but whatever. It's a pretty good soundtrack. I know it's a bit synthy and techno, and I know a lot of people will probably disagree that I actually like it more than Mania's. I know everyone's probably gonna get on my case for that, but hey, that's me. Maybe I'm just a guy who likes techno and synth. This certainly wouldn't be the first time. I mean, I love MVC3's soundtrack, and that's nothing but techno and synth for the most part, so great soundtrack. The only weak link, unfortunately, for me is classic Sonic. His music is... It's not good. As for the lyric theme, since, yeah, we actually have a theme song for a Sonic game again, that's actually something. I really enjoy Fist Bump. I know some people would disagree with that too. Ted from Brain Scratch Comms. But a lot of people seem to have had it grown on them, and I actually really enjoy Fist Bump. I actually really like it. I think it's a great song. Infinite's theme is amazing. That's probably my favorite lyric theme in the game, besides, you know, some of the Avatar stuff, which is also good. Oh, there's a third theme that plays at the end credits. It's boring. It's boring. That's it. But I do enjoy the final boss theme as well, even though the final boss itself is lame. The theme itself is actually really good, so that's another hit. There are a lot of hits. There are some weak points, and it's not the best Sonic soundtrack. I do definitely prefer other soundtracks. I think Adventure has a better soundtrack. Sonic 2 has a better soundtrack. I would say Adventure 2 even has a better soundtrack. And 06 has a better soundtrack. I'd probably even say Heroes in Shadow probably have a better soundtrack, though I do enjoy the lyrical themes more in this game than the ones in Shadow, because some of the ones in Shadow are just dumb. But overall, the soundtrack has a lot of hits. It's a decent soundtrack. And now for the gameplay. Oh boy. Alright, so as for the gameplay itself, it's split up into 3 sections. There's modern... Actually, no, wait, there's 4. Kind of, sort of 4. There's 4 gameplay styles. Kind of. There's Modern Sonic, there's the Avatar, there's Classic Sonic, and then there's Modern Sonic with your OC. Yes, you have they have 3 separate gameplay styles for those. Modern Sonic is probably the best of them. He's the best style, he has some of the best moments in the game. But overall, his moments don't even come close to the highs in Colors, Generations, or hell, even half of Unleashed. You know, the one half of Unleashed that was actually good. You know, the daytime levels. It doesn't even come close. And this is because Modern Sonic doesn't control as well as in the previous games. His jump... It's weird. When you're just moving slowly, Modern Sonic actually controls fairly well. But when you reach high speeds, he suddenly goes from, like... He goes from, like, a steady walk or a jog to, like, instantly running to the top speed. He just instantly goes to that speed. It's like his acceleration is... He has auto acceleration. It's weird because the other modern Sonic games, he went from a steady jog to a steady run, and then the only way you would instantly reach your top speed, instantly, is if you push the boost button. Which was natural. It felt natural. But unfortunately, with this game, it doesn't do that. It just... You have this auto-acceleration that just kicks in. Practice with Modern Sonic sometime. In fact, Classic Sonic and the Avatar have it too. Classic Sonic it doesn't have it with, because, well, it does actually. It just, you know, it's not noticeable because Classic Sonic is the slowest of all the characters. Yes, the Avatar is faster than classic Sonic. Figure that one out. The Avatar has it too, and it's even more noticeable with him because, you know, he doesn't have a boost. He doesn't have a boost. He's not Modern Sonic. He doesn't have a boost. Modern Sonic is weird because of this, because his platforming as well, you think because, oh, well, since he actually controls fairly well when you're slowing down, well, that must mean he's not too much of a bitch to platform with. Wrong! I don't know what it is, but it's like, he seems really slippery because of his weird auto acceleration, but suddenly, for some reason, when you're jumping, it's like his auto acceleration stops and his jump is really slow. Some people bitch about the jumping being really floaty and slow in Adventure. I didn't mind it. I actually liked it because it felt natural for me to do that. It felt like it would help me with better with jumping. But unfortunately, it doesn't do that here. It's stiff when you jump. It feels so stiff and slow and sluggish and really awkward. And at the same time, I absolutely despise the double jump in this game. Okay, I hate the double jump. Just take it out of Boost Sonic. The only time the double jump ever worked for me was in Lost World. Lost World did the double jump, in my opinion, not perfectly, but mostly pretty good. Unfortunately, in this game, I don't know what happened. The double jump, oh my god. It goes back to Sonic Colors, where the double jump kind of cancels your momentum. But unlike Colors, where it actually gave you some height, which was nice, it does not do that at all. And 3D platforming is a complete crapshoot with Sonic. Also, there's something that's really fun and really funny about Modern Sonic's jump. I'm going to show you it right now. Here's a clip of it. Now, in previous Modern Sonic games, I don't really think you could ever do that. This game, however, doesn't give a shit. You can actually do that as much as you want to. His jump... all you have to do that is just hold the jump button, which makes me feel like his controls weren't finished yet. Like, it's still in beta, and there's still some glitches they have to iron out, but they never did. And they're never going to. His controls... so unfinished. He doesn't even have a drift. He doesn't have a drift either, which is weird. Like, why did they take out the drift? And some of his other jumping mechanics, like some of his other little mechanics, like the short hop, are just completely removed. Overall, I really don't like how Modern Sonic controls at all. He is probably the worst controlling Modern Sonic. I'd say even Unleashed actually controls better, because Unleashed... Look, I like that half of Unleashed, I really do, but he didn't control the best because he was very stiff in certain sections. His jumping was very stiff as well, but not Force's levels of stiff. Unleashed controls so much better than this piece of shit, and that's really unfortunate. Sometimes I miss really easy jumps, or jumps that I think should be easy, but for some reason they're not. Classic Sonic doesn't control much better. In fact, Classic Sonic, I'll go out and say, is probably the worst style in the game. He only has 5 levels and 1 boss fight, besides the final boss, and that's it. That's it. He has 2 bosses and 5 levels. He doesn't even have any extra levels. The Avatar has them. Modern Sonic has them. Not Classic Sonic, which I guess is a blessing. It's still like, why'd you even bother putting him in the game? But Classic Sonic is probably my least favorite style out of any of the styles. Mostly just because he really... God, I don't know whether... It's weird. I think he has the same problem as Modern Sonic, but without the boost, and it's in 2D. but something about classic Sonic feels so stiff and slippery at the same time. He's slippery on the ground, he's slippery and skittish on the ground, but in the air he's like really stiff. His jump kind of goes far sometimes and sometimes doesn't. It feels so off and awkward, and this is not Sonic Mania at all. I don't know how to describe classic Sonic, because there are times where he controls really badly because he's really slippery and finicky, and other times he's really stiff. It kind of decides on itself. It's so weird and awkward, I can't even put it into words, it's so bad. You just have to play it in order to know how bad it is. I know that's like kind of a cop-out, but it really is hard to describe them. They really are just bad controls. And classic Sonic is my least favorite style. The drop dash is integrated into it as well, and it's nowhere near as fun as it is in Mania. Mania was more free-flowing, you could do a lot more with it, it was more flexible because of the physics engine. Here, no. In fact, classic Sonic doesn't really have that good of physics, if he even has any at all. His momentum uphill is really wonky. Sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. Rolling, it's weird. Rolling feels so automated too. Like sometimes there are times where it really works, but it doesn't really feel like it was supposed to. And then other times it feels like it just doesn't work even though I'm going downhill. Why aren't I going faster? The only way to pick up speed really is with the spin dash and the drop dash. I'd say the drop dash is actually better since it feels faster, but also less flexible. It feels more gimmicky in a way. There's even times where they actually legit just put a shit ton of enemies just to force you to use the spin dash. However, that's really annoying too because you don't have the square button instant spin dash from Generations, which I really enjoyed that. Why did they get rid of that? Why can't they just keep that? I like that feature. Why can't we have it in every Sonic game? Please. Classic Sonic doesn't even control as well as he does in Generations, and that's just a sin. It's just really hard to control him, and he's really bad to play. He is definitely my least favorite style out of every one of the styles in Sonic Forces. Alright, I'm just gonna sum up the avatar. He's modern Sonic without the boost and any of the other stuff. He has a slightly slower homing attack because of the grapple, and he has the Wispons, or the Wispons, whatever you want to pronounce them as. I'm just gonna call them Wispons because it's easier to say. Wispons are essentially just, they're guns. Oh god, Shadow the Hedgehog. But no, these are cartoony guns. You have Flame, which is a flamethrower, which is by far the second best. You should always use that. Void, which is, in my opinion, actually the real best, because it sucks in everything, including rings, which makes it really easy S-ranks for you, because rings give you a shit ton of points. Hover, which is really broken in certain places. There's Drill, which is really good for speedrunning, apparently. I don't know how. Asteroid and Cube, which are completely fucking worthless. I don't know anyone who would ever want to use those. Overall, it's, you know, I guess it's a nice selection, but overall, they're very unbalanced. They feel very unbalanced and unfinished. You can pull off some really crazy stunts that I think you really shouldn't have been able to pull off. Also, the avatar has wisps. Yes, the wisps are back again. Alright, look, the wisps were fun in colors because they actually worked with the level design. They were actually designed around the wisps. The levels in colors were actually designed with the wisps in mind. Now the wisps just feel like a darn gimmick because they just feel like they're there just for the sake of being there, like it checks off a box. To be fair, they're only really in the avatar levels. The White Wisp capsules are in Modern Sonic, in his levels for the boost, for some reason, but whatever. That's really it. All of the other Wisps are made for the avatar. However, here's the weird part. The Wisps, you can only use a certain type of Wisp, a certain type of gun. So if you have a Void Wisp, you can't use any of the other Wisps. You can only use Void Wisps that you find in the level. But not every level has the Wisps, and some of them lead to alternate routes. So because of this, you're encouraged to switch up your Wispons in order to get shortcuts for red rings and shit. Thing is, some Wisps do the exact same thing as another wisp. Like, the burst wisp is used for certain red rings, but you can grab them with the hover wisp as well, so what's the point? And there are some wisps where you can use the void, but you can also use, like, the lightning wisp, which I forgot to talk about, actually, which is just a lightning whip. So why bother even using your void wisp if you can just easily get it with a lightning wisp? So it's just like, some wisps are just there to do multiple things, and some of them do the same thing or lead you to the same paths. So whatever, what's the point? Besides wasting my time switching up weapons. You know, I would have liked it better if maybe depending on the Wispin gun, and depending on the wisp it actually has, you actually get a different ability, or maybe instead your gun can hold multiple wisps and maybe combine the abilities together, or maybe you just have one gun, but it can switch up wisps depending on what power-ups you grab, and that's what Wispiny has. So whatever you want to use, that's up to you, but you have to grab the wisp in the level first. I actually think a little bit of customization would really go a long way, but no, you can't really customize your Wispin or what wisp it uses. Can't really do any of that. Like, maybe the wisps could be power-ups in the level for your gun, and only for your gun. And like, your gun is just a typical, like, blaster or something like that, but when you get the wisp, like, say I get the lightning wisp in a level, my blaster becomes a lightning whip, or it becomes a flamethrower when I get the flame wisp, or the burst wisp. I think that would have been a better way to do it, because I think that would be more interesting, but I guess not. As for the Avatar and his controls, he actually controls a lot worse than Modern Sonic. His jump is so weird. It carries way too much momentum. It's weird. Modern Sonic has the opposite problem. It doesn't carry enough momentum. The Avatar it carries way too much momentum. Like, you go way farther and really overshoot those platforms in a way that you do not want to. And because of that, the Avatar is just really, really uncomfortable to control. It's really not fun to play as him when you're platforming. There are times where I just completely miss platforms and go into a pit when I really should have made it. And I consider myself decent enough at platformers. I do screw up quite a bit, but this time I didn't really feel like it was my fault for screwing up. It felt like it was the game's fault for not having good enough control. Like, if I die in Adventure 1 or 2, I usually blame myself, because those controls are so tight and well done. Hell, even in Generations, and sometimes even in Colors, even though Colors has its own jumping and controlling issues. But in my opinion, no. I legit blame Forces because of its incompetent control. It's not the worst control ever. It's definitely no Sonic 06 or, say, Shadow the Hedgehog, but it's definitely not fun to control these characters, and I definitely think, I personally think that these controls, honestly, it's weird. They go through so many, like, they go through so much back and forth between slippery and really bad and stiff. It's weird. It just depends on the gameplay style, but Modern Sonic is way too slippery on the ground, but he's really stiff in midair. Classic Sonic does both whenever he wants to, because it's so broken and unfinished. And the Avatar kind of is just way too slippery to control. It's slippery even on the ground. It feels like he has way too much momentum both on the ground and in the air. And sometimes you don't have enough momentum because you're just jumping, but you didn't actually start moving until you started jumping. So because of that, you won't jump far enough because it's not carrying any momentum. It's a completely momentum-based jump. And you can't even turn around while jumping either, or at least not that much. Usually you have enough mid-air control to sort of fix the jump. Like, if you think you're not going to make it, you can move back a bit. You can't do that. You can't do that. And you can use a double jump, which might help you a bit, but the double jump is pretty much just as bad as Modern Sonic's, so there's really no difference. And as for Modern Sonic and the Avatar, this was the one gameplay style I actually think had the most fun level design, because they actually had a way to kind of get crazy with it. My favorite level actually in the game is Null Space, because I actually think, minus the first section with the stupid mash X to win, or square to win, I don't know, I forget, I don't care. Besides the mash button to win, I actually think that's the best level in the game, mostly just because it has the most unique and fun level design out of the bunch, not to mention it has a lot of wide open pathways that you can take, not just depending on the Wisp, but also because of the Avatar's abilities really do come in handy for it. And I actually do think it's a fun level. It does feel like the most complete level in the game as well, and as Fist Bump playing in the background, so that of course also helps. With that said, I actually think this style could actually be used to make a sequel, a pseudo-sequel in some way, but instead of it being just modern Sonic and the Avatar, and classic Sonic, just don't have classic Sonic and don't have modern and Avatar separate. Keep them together. Have the Avatar form a bond with Sonic, a friendship, sort of like how Tails was. Maybe even instead of the OC, you could have like Sonic Advance 3 in 3D, where you could have Sonic and Tails join up as partners in a 3D game. We never really had that with, you know how in Sonic Adventure, where Tails was your partner for the levels when you replayed them, or even in the story mode, and how you always had Tails at your side in the 2D games? Maybe they could do that for 3D as well, only they could actually have a multiplayer system where Tails is actually with you the entire time, like a co-op multiplayer mode in 3D, maybe with split screen even. And I'm talking about like a real one for the story mode. And maybe they could even have sort of like a Sonic Advance 3 thing where they have different abilities depending on what partner you have. If you have Knuckles, if you have Tails, or Amy, or Sonic, or Shadow, or Silver, or Blaze, I think that would be a good idea. And they did use the style enough. It's not to the fullest extent it could be, because really it is just modern Sonic again, but the Avatar has a double jump, and you can switch, and the way you switch between them is actually kind of interesting. You don't switch between them in a normal sense. It just, say I'm using the boost, that's when I switch to the Avatar. But when I use the Wispin with the trigger buttons, then I actually switch to the Avatar. So it's like you don't really switch, you're just controlling Sonic with a bit more moves and options, which is kind of interesting. Though, to be fair, it is probably a bad reason of why they actually replaced the drift. Whatever. I mean, I guess I would prefer a switching option, but it controls fine enough. I wouldn't mind seeing this type of gameplay kind of form its own game, like a Sonic Advance 3 in 3D. I actually think maybe that could fix some of the game's problems since it has some really bad level design issues. But, you know, that's just from what I've heard. I've never actually played the game, but I think it could be a decent idea for a future game, so that's just me, though. With that said, overall, the gameplay styles are incredibly meh. They don't control all that great, and what's even worse is that even though the controls are meh, I would probably have a decent time with them, with the exception of classic Sonic. I probably would have fun with some of these controls, even though it feels meh, if the levels were actually decent.
Too much quiet is usually a sign of danger.
Yeah, it's probably a sign that they rushed their game. Again.
Best to play it safe here.
Oh, you mean like what Sega did with this game? Oh!